Good afternoon, Seahawks. Dr. Cora here, and today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about something that you are already doing, and that is breathing. You have been doing it since the day you were born, and I can promise you that you are killing it. You are doing an excellent job with breathing. And so as we're talking about intentional breathing today, just keep in mind, it's not about being perfect or having to do things the exact right way. Instead, we're just talking about some ways to use a skill that you already have down to help slow things down a little bit when you're feeling anxious or you have racing thoughts. So let's get started with things. First off, I think that we can use breathing as a tool to anchor ourselves back in the present moment. So as we've talked about in some of the other videos, quite often when we're feeling stressed out or anxious, we can feel kind of disconnected from our body. And our breath is one thing that we can really tune back into and use it as a way to get back in touch, to connect the mind with the body a little bit. So as we're going through these exercises today, let's pay attention to what your body feels like. To start with, sit in a comfortable position. I'm sitting in a chair, but you can sit on the ground or on a cushion if that's more comfortable to you. Just make sure that you're sitting upright, not slouched over, and if you're sitting in a chair, that your legs are straight out in front of you and not crossed. So for just a second, I want you to pay attention to your natural breathing rate. Don't try to slow it down or speed it up or make any changes. I just want you to acknowledge how good you are at this thing already. So let's give it a second to just breathe. Very good. See, I told you you're good at this. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what it means to take a deep breath. Oftentimes we use the term diaphragmatic breath, and that just means it's engaging your diaphragm as you're taking that deep breath. When we start to get stressed out or anxious and that sympathetic nervous system kicks in, it's completely normal for your body to start preparing to deal with the threat. When that happens, you start to breathe a little bit more shallow and more quickly. So you might notice that your breath moves up in your chest and you're taking those shorter, shallow breaths that are really engaging just this top part here. That's thoracic breathing. You can feel what that feels like for just a second by just taking shorter breaths. Now, obviously, we're not trying to increase that arousal. Instead, we want to bring that down. So I want you to place one hand here on the top of your chest, where we talked about it with the thoracic breathing, and the other hand you can place here, just below your rib cage, right on the soft part of your belly there. And for just a couple seconds, I want you to breathe normally and just pay attention to the movement that you feel under your hands. See if you notice one hand or the other, or both, kind of lifting as you take each breath and exhale, okay? So as I mentioned before, if we're taking those shallow breaths, you're probably going to notice that this top hand is moving more than the bottom one. When we take nice deep breaths, the ones that fill up our lungs, we'll notice that that diaphragm will extend and you'll be able to feel that bottom hand lifting. So for a second, I want you to practice breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, just focusing on what it feels like to fill up your lungs. Don't try to move your hands, don't try to do anything, just notice what it's like to take a full breath. Good. See, I bet you're pretty good at that too. So when I talk about intentional breathing, it doesn't have to be any specific thing, right? There are all kinds of variations, like breathing through one nostril and then out the other. All of those are good ways to practice intentional breathing, but really it's about slowing your breath down and just paying attention to this thing that you're already really good at. So let's pause for just one more moment and practice taking those deep breaths. noticing that that bottom hand just naturally rises and falls as you're filling your lungs up all the way down into the bottom part of your lungs, or the diaphragm. Okay. And there you have it. So throughout your day-to-day life, you can always take a second and just get a check on where your breathing is. That's great. Over time, you'll be able to notice where your breath is going by just kind of tuning in and paying attention. Start to recognize the sensations of that shallow breath versus having the deeper, fuller breath. The more you practice this, the more you will become familiar with your own body and what it feels like to engage with each of those types of breath. Remember, this is meant to be a tool and something to just help you slow down and hit the pause button if you are still feeling overwhelmed. It's not something that you are doing wrong or need to fix, right? You've been breathing really well for a really long time. So with that, we'll wrap up and just continue doing what you're doing. You're doing it well. Have a good one, Seahawks. Bye-bye.